Ladies and gentlemen, well, thanks for joining me on this 1st of November, Thursday, 2018. It's the day after Halloween. I hope you didn't get destroyed by any slashers out there. That would be really, really, really bad. It's 3:03 p.m. Central Standard Time. I don't know why I gave you all the specifics, but there you go. And joining me is Ethan Swick. Ethan, how are you?
I'm doing really good today, JC. How are you doing?
Fantastic. And by the way, in case you didn't hear it, his name is Swick. I mean, how awesome is that?
Yeah, I hear that from time to time. People think, "Oh, Ethan Swick. That sounds like a hero from like a movie or something."
Yeah, like Star-Lord.
Star-Lord. Yeah, it's kind of close to Peter Quill, I guess.
Right.
Yeah.
You could use that for your production company, Swick Productions.
Yeah, it would get some attention at least. I hope.
That would be cool. Well, guys, you know that I've been doing a podcast series on the stories that people have, because we all have stories. It's a profile type of podcast today, and here to share his story is Ethan. He'll be sharing with us. I want to start with where you're from and just a little bit of your background as far as church goes and what you liked about where you lived.
Okay, so I'm originally from the tiny town of Ponca, Nebraska, which is way up in the northeast corner of the state, about 20 miles from Sioux City, Iowa. That's kind of the big town that everybody at least knows a little bit about. 2 hours north of Omaha, and I grew up in the sticks, so just way out in the country, and I loved it. I love everything about living in the country, the wide open spaces, all the hills, the cows and the corn, and so my family were farmers. My mom is a paraprofessional at an elementary school. And so my dad and my grandpa, they farm about 1,300 acres, do the whole corn and the beans thing. We used to do hogs, and I liked the pigs, but they were a little bit much. Really good bacon. Like the best bacon I've ever had comes from, which is really sad. We have to slaughter our own animals. but it's really great. Yes.
Oh, wow.
Yes, it's really great. So we live in Nebraska. I do have 3 younger siblings, Morgan, Alyssa, and Lexi. Maybe you're listening to this at some point. They're all in grade school and high school, so they're getting ready to go off to college. And I grew up in church. I grew up at an AG church. Really quite a statement to make. I grew up in church. We were AG growing up all the way through and through. Morningside Assembly of God, little plug there. I actually did an internship with them just over the summer, helping them out with video production and some graphics. And they're just such a great group of people. I really love my church family. It's some of my best friends are there. Some my family that I'm not actually related to. Whole church family right there. Right. I love Morningside. I love Sioux City, and so my grandparents originally were Catholic, and so when my mom was a teenager, they switched over to AG. So my grandpa Tim, he's kind of the spearhead, at least for my family, becoming AG and kind of moving over from the Catholicism movement over to Pentecostalism, and I'm really thankful for that. And I got to learn a lot about that actually in our Pentecost class when we had to do the interview project. I don't know if you've done that yet.
Yes.
And it's really interesting to hear his story and to learn, like my roots as far as being in the AG and being a Pentecostal person. Mm-hmm. So, growing up, doing that whole thing, youth camps, all those nights at the altar, it's really cool. And I'm really proud of where I come from. As an AG person, as a person from Nebraska, that's kind of the basis. That's the foundation of Ethan Swick.
So I've got some family that was raised Catholic or Catholic, whatever it may be. Do you like having that kind of that difference just between the two denominations and being able to have some claim in both sides of it? Isn't that pretty cool?
It is kind of cool. So whenever there's like a funeral or a wedding on my mom's side, like especially like my grandparents, like siblings or whatever, it'll all take place, in a Catholic setting. And I find that really interesting because I don't there obviously there's things that I disagree with the Catholic tradition, but there's a lot of things that I do appreciate. And I appreciate things like sacrament as far as like physically expressing your devotion to the Lord. I think that's really really incredible thing that we obviously do communion and those sorts of things. But I there's things I appreciate about the Catholic movement, and I really like being able to say that it's not like terribly foreign to me. Completely.
Right. And you're not a Catholic basher either.
No, I'm not gonna like go around saying, oh, the Catholics believe this, oh, they worship Mary, Mary's God. You know, this total straw man arguments. There's some things that I don't agree with, but there's some people that just really take it out of proportion.
I went to a Catholic mass a few Christmases back, and I have to say I really, really enjoyed it. It's so, not that we don't have reverence, you know, in the AG or in a Baptist denomination or wherever you may be from, but there's something to be said about reverence in a Catholic church. I think it's very orderly, quiet, just very peaceful. So yeah,
and just the beautiful architecture. I really love that, especially when we go to some event at a Catholic church. I really just like admiring, you know, the careful work that went into either the stained glass or just the architecture itself of the room. It's all really cool.
No, it's beautiful artwork, and sadly, it's art that is kind of gone today. We don't see very many cathedrals, at least not new ones.
Yeah.
But moving on from that and into what brought you here to Evangel, you know, kind of what made you make this decision to start here?
Okay, so as far as making this decision goes, I originally didn't want to go to Evangel at all. Like my mom pressured me to even apply to go to Evangel because we'd had some church friends that were going here. I don't know if you're familiar with the Heltons. They're the lead pastor at my church, and so they had a daughter going here, and they had a son that was going to be applying to go here.
Your church back in Nebraska?
Yes, my church back in Nebraska.
Okay.
And so I didn't want to come to Evangel. I hated the idea of just like already having gen eds at a normal college, and so I just didn't like the idea of like the gen eds are just gonna be like Sunday school. I'm gonna hate it. It's gonna be so lame. And at that time in my life, I identified as a Christian, but I wasn't completely sold out. And that was senior year of high school, and I had a lot going on, and
right.
I just God wasn't really like my number one aspect, I guess you could say. And
I think a lot of us could agree to that.
Yeah, especially high school's a tough time for everybody. But I applied. My mom wanted me to apply, and I also applied for the Founders Scholarship because we're not the most well-off family, but so I'm trying to get as many scholarships as possible.
Sure.
And so I did. I got invited to come over for Founders Weekend, and I just instantly fell in love with the place. And there was a lot that happened just visiting and being able to walk around and see the TV studio and see the comm department and just kind of encounter some of the people here. And I really just I knew that it was right to come to Evangel. The campus felt like home, and I had no idea really what to expect coming in. I knew that it was going to be a pretty campus, and I had seen some pictures like, the pretty flowers, and the clock's kind of cool.
Might have some Bible verses on the walls.
There's probably Bible verses and people walking around sitting in the quad talking about Jesus and that sort of thing. I really had no idea coming in, and it shattered my expectations. And moving the mic. I really just fell in love with the campus, and I knew that it was where I had to be. And I was also impressed with the film program because I was coming in as a potential film and broadcasting major. And so especially seeing the comm department and meeting some of the people in there, I thought it was really cool. And I knew there was a lot of opportunity to be had there.
Who's your advisor in the comm department?
My advisor is Chip Stanek.
There we go.
He is the man, the myth, the legend. His real name is Paul. I didn't even know that until like 2 years coming into Evangel.
You're not kidding.
I'm not kidding. That's his real name. He just goes by Chip, though. And he is a phenomenal person.
I've got Dr. Kelton, but this semester is the first class I've taken with Dr. Stanek. It's Web Design 1. I'm not big on web design, but I love Dr. Stanek.
Yeah. He can at least make it interesting.
Yeah.
On the LA trip that I went on a couple of years ago, for my global connections, he was one of the people that went along with it, and he's one of the funniest people.
Oh, he's hilarious.
He's great. He has this. He had to tell us this story about this hot dog that he came up with in a dream once, and it had like marshmallows on it and like chocolate syrup and like chili, all of these things in it. And in his dream, he ate it and he was like, "Oh, this is amazing." And then in real life, he woke up and he decided to make it because he thought it was still going to be amazing. And he told us it was disgusting. It was the worst thing. But that's just the kind of person that he is, and he's fantastic.
That is trippy. Okay.
Yep.
No, him and Dr. Kelton are hilarious. Dr. Kelton's sense of humor is very dry, but I think that Dr. Stanik's sense of humor is even drier.
How do we get the most two dry sense of humor people in the comm department? Like, what are the odds? They're great. I love both of them. Fantastic people.
And Dr. Stanek loves pugs, too. That's something I learned.
He loves pugs. I think he has a dream of holding a monkey. Like he's always wanted to hold one or like touch one or something, like, you know. And he told us a story again about how like there was like this plumber that came to his house, and like the whole advertising shtick was that he would like bring his like chimpanzee or whatever like with him like on jobs. And so Dr. Stanek was like, "Hey, can I go see your monkey guy?" And the guy's like, "Yeah, sure, you can go see him, but just don't touch him." And then dreams crushed.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, you have to ask him about that.
We'll have to have him on and interview him just about that.
Yes.
Tell us about monkeys. Oh, my. So, favorite professor in the comm department?
All right.
You feel like saying who that is?
I could say who that is. And I've told him this a couple times. My favorite professor is Dr. Kelton. And, I had him a bunch of classes freshman year and sophomore year, and I'm really looking forward to finally having him again next semester in his communication theory and analysis class.
Oh.
I think he's my favorite professor, and if I had to say why, it's because obviously his humor is fantastic, but he's just a fantastic person. Like I've talked to him just like outside of class, and he has a heart for students. He has a heart for ministry. He has a heart for God. And those are just a bunch of things I really appreciate about him, because he really puts his students first in all of his classes. He keeps cards on the first day of any class that you have with him, he has you write down your name and I don't know, maybe a couple prayer requests or something, and he'll just keep these cards with him throughout the semester and pray for them. Mm-hmm. And that's something I really admire. Like if I ever had to be a professor, I would want to model Dr. Kelton.
Right. And that's something, and I think you touched on it really well. If you want to get to know a professor, don't just stay in the class. Make sure you know them outside of the class. Because like with any of us, we all have things that not everybody gets to see. If you want to connect with the professor, make sure you do it. Make sure you value them as a person and not just as your teacher. So very good on that. And by the way, Dr. Kelton is also my favorite professor. I don't say that too loudly, but yeah, Miss Pacemiller's great too, and she would be very upset.
Oh, yeah. Don't want booze to walk by or something. Yeah, absolutely.
So your majors, you have two. What are they?
So my original major, my first one coming in, was film and broadcasting, Mm-hmm. And my other major originally was biblical studies, but I switched to philosophy.
So you've got film and broadcasting and philosophy.
Yes.
That's obviously a very interesting mix. When I first heard you say it, I'm thinking, okay, are we talking about films like The Matrix and you're going to put philosophy in your films, or what are we doing? Obviously, it doesn't sound like that, at least from what you told me. So what was the reasoning behind that?
So part of it is kind of what you said there, but like my main reason is I see myself not as just like as a person wanting to get into like a specific craft or industry, mm-hmm. but I've always known that I have at least some inklings of being some sort of intellectual, or at least wanting to learn more about philosophy or theology. And so moving over from biblical studies into philosophy, I had a class with Dr. Schmidley, and it's Introduction to Deductive Logic. And I've talked to him about this class before. And we listed it as a 100 level class. He said it really should be a 300 level class because it is kind of tough. But we listed down with those intro to philosophy classes, and in taking it, I fell in love with philosophy, and I love logic. I love analyzing argument forms, and that's I really kind of thrive on that. And you can do that in all aspects of whatever career you're going into. People love knowing that you're able to think for yourself and that you have critical thinking skills. And as far as going into film, philosophy helps out in a number of different areas, whether it comes to writing a film, trying to come up with ideas for like what kind of shot I should do. You have to think critically about every single thing, because everything in film is very intentional. And even with coming up with a moral or a message to your story, philosophy helps out a lot. And philosophy can even be the groundwork for a good story. So like you mentioned, The Matrix, that's really an interesting story. I love The Matrix. And for those of you out there that maybe are familiar with a philosopher called René Descartes, he had this idea, his book called The Meditations. His whole thing was, what if we're just a brain in a vat, everything around you can't perceive actually? What if everything around you is false? Everything you know is untrue. And that's kind of the groundwork for The Matrix.
Right.
And this is a philosopher that wrote, in the 1630s. And so philosophy.
He was also a Christian, wasn't he?
He was a very devout Christian. Part of his argument for proving that the world around you is true is an ontological argument for God's existence, which I find really fascinating. But yeah, so philosophy plays a lot of roles in film, and it can play a role basically in any career that you go into. So I would recommend even a philosophy minor is fantastic. You get a lot of logic, critical thinking. You can get a few maybe political philosophy. A lot of different classes can go into that.
Is Dr. Smidley the only professor here who teaches philosophy?
No. So Dr. Pincombe also teaches philosophy of religion. I believe he teaches aesthetics, and I believe he teaches metaphysics and epistemology. And you can also take modernism and postmodernism with Dr. Berg. So there's a few different professors that teach philosophy, but Schmidley and Pincombe are kind of the main two.
Okay, cool.
Yes.
So we have a wide variety of perspectives and teaching styles. That's pretty cool. I think you really need that with any department, and that's one of the things, at least for the government side of what I'm doing. I feel bad for Dr. Bartels. I love Dr. Bartels, but he does it all to a great extent on his own. Thankfully, we're starting to branch out and more people are contributing, but it's got to be tough to plan for a class and have a whole semester laid out. I can't even imagine doing that. I don't want to do that, so Lord, please don't call me to be a teacher down the road.
Maybe you'll see JC as a professor, 20 years from now.
Professor X.
Professor X, yeah. That's pretty good.
If you can't tell, well, obviously you can't. I'm in a wheelchair, so... Oh dear, I just dropped a key. Okay, so getting to the topic of... we talked about being here at Evangel, your majors, we talked about those things. What is one thing that you would like to do long term? What's your dream job? My
dream job is being a filmmaker on a big Hollywood production, whether that involves mainly I want to be a film director. And I love cinematography and I love writing, and those are all things that I would also like to do. But I really like the role of director because I find it very intriguing to have the director has the vision for the entire movie, and they're responsible for the whole film and how it turns out. And I feel like that's a position that I am suited for, as far as having ideas and wanting to see the bigger picture and being able to just see things in my head and wanting to produce that into something that other people can enjoy. I don't know about seeing things in your head. That would be scary. Well, it depends on what you look at in my head. Okay, so big production. Are we thinking like just anything? Would you like to go into comic book production? Because that's the big thing right now is comic book movies. Comic book movies are huge. That's huge. So would you love to take part in, I don't know, the next Marvel or DC big hit movie? That would be really cool. I've always wondered about this because Spider-Man is my favorite superhero, hands down. Which one in the film? Maguire, Garfield, Holland? Okay, I think Tom Holland is the best interpretation of both Peter Parker and Spider-Man. I grew up on the Tobey Maguire movies, and so I still have a soft spot for those, for especially Spider-Man 2. I think that's my favorite Spider-Man movie. So I love Spider-Man, and I would love to make a Spider-Man movie, and I know that there's so many of them out there right now. So if I had to make a movie off of another character, I would like to do Spider-Man 2099.
Oh my!
Which takes place in the future, and it's about a Spider-themed hero also who has he has a little bit of a different outlook on justice, and I think that would be something unique to explore.
Can you go into that a little bit?
Sure. So the Spider-Man that we know and love, he acts on this sense of responsibility. Like that's his theory of justice is
right.
I need to do what's right. If I'm able to do something, if I'm able to help somebody or stop somebody from getting hurt, I need to do that. That's my responsibility. And Spider-Man 2099, aka Miguel O'Hara, he's a little more vindictive. He has, if I had to compare him, he's a little bit more closer to maybe what you would say Batman is. His theory of justice. He's a little more ruthless when it comes to, especially with fighting. I think there could be a lot of interesting fighting type scenes with him because his powers vary a little bit differently from the Peter Parker that we know. He has these things that come out of his hands that are able to shoot venom and like stun people, which is really interesting, a little bit different. He has like the normal powers, sticking to walls, and he's web shooters. He can shoot webs and all that. But he has his environment is also very interesting because it takes place in the future. So we'd have to realize this whole idea of like what would New York look like, 50. I guess it'd be way more than that. It'd be like 70 years from now. And I think that would be something interesting to tackle. I would really like to do that.
Are you familiar with the animated series called Batman Beyond?
Yes, I am.
What do you think of that? I was a big fan.
I liked Batman Beyond. I thought, and Batman Beyond as a character, he's very different from Bruce Wayne, and I think that's refreshing. And I like the suit. I like the villains. It's Batman, but it's not quite Batman.
Right,
it's different. Right. I like the tone. It has the Batman tone. Everything else, it's a little bit different, and it's refreshing. And
I tend to enjoy how, your basic characters, Batman, Spider-Man, Superman even, they change with the times that we live in. Superman, I haven't seen anything really fresh that deviates too much from his story. Yeah. But Spider-Man, I think, is fresh that we didn't have to see another origin story with Holland. We just jumped right into the story. I love that. Yes. I thought that was great. I would love to see another Iron Man. I wish we would have had Iron Man 4 with Robert Downey Jr., but that probably won't happen. Yeah. Maybe we'll get a different interpretation of the story. Right now we have a Doctor Strange 2 coming out at some point, I think. Yep. I'm excited for that. That'll be cool. So
Guardians 3 also coming out soon. And I believe they've released the title for the new Spider-Man movie, Spider-Man Far From Home. Yes. I think it's supposed to take place in Europe or something.
By the way,
or at least for a majority of it.
Have you played the new game?
I have. I beat the story mode, and I'm 95% done with like all the extra like little things that you collect around the city and all the little crimes. I love the game. I think it was a fantastic game, and it's almost up there with like Tom Holland as far as like an interpretation of Spider-Man goes. I think they really nailed down like what would Peter Parker look like if he was in his mid-20s and he's out of college and everything. What would he be doing then? And I think they really hit the hammer on the head because a majority of Spider-Man's comic book stories are when he's in college and when he's like just out of college. Right. So I think it was really cool to see that, especially their interpretation of the villains. They didn't deviate too much from the comics, but they were still like fresh and and they had a unique quality to them.
So you're a comic book reader too?
I am, yes. Right. I am a comic book reader.
Great. Yeah, because you can have so many people, and not that there's anything wrong with this. I mean, there are times when I should have read more of those than I have, but there are people who are not really familiar with the source material, who are big fans of the movies, and that's fine. But I really feel like it adds a whole different dimension to it if you've read the backstories. So Yeah, but I'm biased. What do I know? Are you excited for the new animated movie coming out? Spider-Man. It's the Spider-Verse movie.
Yes, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. I'm really excited for it actually, because it's based off of a story arc that came out. I think it was like 2014, and I have all the issues of that. And it is really unique seeing all the different Spider-Mans from all the different parallel universes in the whole multiverse or whatever kind of come together to fight a common enemy. It's really unique, and the whole story, I would recommend looking it up or just reading it if you are able to find it online or find the comic books in store. It's a really unique storyline. So
yes.
I don't want to give away too much of it because I don't know like how much of it's like gonna be like incorporated into the movie, and so like no spoilers or anything. But
I played the Spider-Man Shattered Dimensions game when it first came out. Loved it, and I fell in love with the Spider-Man Noir that was on the game.
Yes.
I'm excited because I think he's going to be in this new movie we were just talking about.
Yes, he is. He's going to be in that movie, and he's voiced by Nicolas Cage.
That's going to be cool.
Fantastic.
If you want any YouTube channel to go and learn about comic books, if you don't want to read anything, go to the YouTube channel Comics Explained. It's a great... Have you seen that?
I think so.
It's a great YouTube channel. It's like sitting and watching a comic book just unfold before your eyes. You don't even have to read it. And if you want spoilers, if you're too lazy to go pick up a copy or get a digital copy, because these days you can get it for free.
Somewhere.
Not that you should, but hey, it's out there. Go and watch that YouTube channel. It's great. Moving and segueing from the comic book talk, which is lovely, we should do just a whole episode on that, into kind of just your time here at Evangel. Mm-hmm. If we were to look at what you like most about Evangel, what you think you've learned, or what you have learned, not what you think you've learned, you have learned something. What's one thing that really sticks out in your mind, something that you like, and something that you've learned?
Okay. Well, I hope I've learned a few things here at Evangel. It's paying all this money for tuition. Yes. I'll start with what I like. And as a somewhat prominent person in the communication department, I love the people.
Oh, don't be so modest.
I try to be humble at least a little bit. So in working at EUTV and working in a little bit of the yearbook and working in EU films, I've just come to meet so many amazing people, so many talented individuals, and it's so awesome being able to not only work with them, but just to be close friends. I have a lot of friends here in the comm department, and the whole EU Films crew this semester especially has really just turned into a family. And the comm department sometimes gets a bad rap of being a cult and all of that, and I'll appreciate that people see that we're close,
right? And
because we're a very close group. I can look back on all the times that there was a project due the next day, and everybody's hanging out in Trask 315, trying to work on projects, but mostly just kind of hanging out and talking. And of course we would get our stuff done, but there's just that element of community just right there in the communication department.
No offense to any of my friends in fine arts, but I think communications is fine arts on steroids.
I think that's true. Very true. And I just love the people, and especially with a process of filmmaking being so team-oriented, I think it's important that we are close and we do know each other and we know our strengths and our weaknesses, and we work together not only in a professional sense but in a familial, friendly sense.
Mm-hmm. Now, if Ethan Swick were president of the university, President Ethan Swick,
all right,
and you could change anything that you wanted to. Because you mentioned the family aspect, and I agree with you on that. People might think it's cliche, but it really is true. Once you're a student here, if you never had a family, this will become your family.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
I'm not just saying that, and it will change your life. It's like Ethan said, I hope that by the end of my time here, I will have learned a few things.
Yes.
So if you could change anything at all, it doesn't even have to be bad. Maybe just something you don't necessarily think is as best as what it could be. Mm-hmm. What would you change?
Sure. I'll answer this question, and I guess I didn't really go over like what I've learned, so I'll come back to that.
Okay.
So if there was something that I could change, and this is just me trying to suggest stuff. Because, I mean, obviously Evangel is... we're a very Christian institution, and I think that's fantastic. I love the idea of keeping your students accountable and trying to cultivate a lifestyle where people are able to be their best selves. Right. I think that's great. There are a few things that I wouldn't mind if we were maybe a little more lenient on. I don't particularly agree with having to be 22 to move out and live off campus.
Right.
I think that maybe we could see maybe a little bit of change in just prohibiting students from, setting foot in a bar or, there's some things that are controversial. And I want to be sensitive to those things, but there should be maybe just a tiny bit more freedom for some of the students, or I guess for all the students, but a little bit more.
Right.
And that's just me suggesting things. Like if the university sees best fit that all students do such and such, then I really can't stop them from doing that, and I'm willing to abide by those sorts of things. So
right.
don't get me wrong. There are just some sort of leniencies that I wouldn't mind seeing with the students, because I mean we are students, and we are all hopefully trying to pursue what God has put before us.
Yes.
But I don't mind a little bit of freedom and at least being able to choose what I should and shouldn't do.
Like million freedom?
Million freedom. I support million freedom completely. But yeah. And obviously the university has the right to say your students shouldn't do this and shouldn't do this.
Right.
And there are things in the biblical code that I wouldn't do and that I respect. So, yeah, I guess that's kind of my opinion there. And I'm sorry if that's a little ambiguous.
No, that's great.
But I'm sure people from Evangel listening kind of understand what I mean.
Yes. And you wanted to go into what you learned as well.
Yes. So, especially I'm sure this is true in all areas and all specialties, especially in film, you have to have a thick skin. And so perseverance is something that I've learned not only as a person going into a career, but just as a person. I feel that college is a time of highs and lows. And for some people, there's more highs, and for some people, there's more lows. But overall, you learn this. I don't know what you'd say, the sense, maybe, you learn a sense of perseverance. And part of that comes through God's grace, because you have to recognize that, yes, I'm going through trials, and yes, I'm going through a good time here. And part of that is just worshiping God and, I guess, how would I say this? Maybe like admitting or recognizing his providence through everything. So that would be something that I really learned here, is especially in filmmaking, where it seems like it's an uphill battle all the time. You shoot something and you look back on the footage and I hate this. It looks like garbage.
Right.
And you just have to persevere, and you have to wait for it to all come together, because in filmmaking there's so many different things that go into it. If you look at just one aspect of it, you might not like it. But once the final movie comes together and you see all the work that you've put into it and all the attention to detail and the intentionality of producing this art piece, you'll see it all come together, and it'll be something that you love. But the first rough cut usually kind of sucks, and you'll look at it and you'll think this is garbage. But and that just translates into life, I feel, and that's something that I've learned, is just keeping perseverance, keeping your head up when life kind of gets you down, because it will get you down. And college is stressful. We got homework, and we're trying to balance relationships and friendships. And if you're living off campus like me, you need money, you need rent, food. All of this stacks up, and at times it's hard to see, or it's hard to see the light at the end of the tunnel, or keep your head above water. But perseverance and trusting in the Lord, and just knowing that He has your steps planned out for you. He has the path before you, and He protects you, guides you. That's just a big part. That's probably the biggest thing that I've learned.
Very good.
Thank you.
I have to say, ladies and gentlemen, I don't know how many kids are in the audience, but I say ladies and gentlemen. I have to say, and I think you'll agree with this, going through this whole process that we call university education, it means so much more when you have the spiritual backing to it. And my life has been changed through being here. You know, it's like Ethan, there are things that I'm like, I wish it wasn't that way, or hey, I really like this, but overall, your time here is what you make it. Mm-hmm. And by the end of your time here, I hope you can say, like Ethan and myself, I've learned a few things. If you can't, something is wrong, and I encourage you to embrace your time here and to enjoy it. Do you have any, I don't want to say any last words because you're not dying.
These are my last words, guys.
But any advice to underclassmen or just people who may listen to this later on?
All right. Underclassmen or anybody out there listening, if you're considering coming to Evangel or just going to college in general, it's definitely something that I would recommend. And we live in a country where nowadays you don't have to go to college, and hopefully no one looks down on you for not doing that. But if you do go to college, you're in for a treat. And it's not always easy. It's not always going to be glamorous. No. College lifestyle like in the movies, you know, everyone's just having a good time. It's going to be hard. And that's just how life is. And but if you have something, you have God, spiritual backing, have that faith, keep it strong. That'll get you through. And not only that, but just, you know, your friends, your family, people that you're close to. I would just say that going to college is a great thing. I've had a blast, even though it's been good and bad. So I don't want anybody to be like afraid of going to college.
Right.
I think that if there's something that you want to do, go out and do it. Go to college. And if you go to Evangel, even better. You're going to love it. So.
Amen. Amen, amen. Well, ladies and gentlemen, if you see Ethan Swick around, make sure you say hello.
I'll say hi back.
Do you want to plug your film real quick?
Sure. So this fall, we are in the midst of production of our feature film called Uprooted, which is an action-adventure type film, a little bit of levity there. You know, it's a fun movie. I want it to be a fun kind of popcorn movie that you go to and you enjoy. And it tells the story of a botanist named Alan Parker who discovers a somewhat mystical plant out in a foreign country, brings it back to the United States. Turns out there is a gang of paramilitary type people also trying to get this plant for its strange properties.
Oh, wow.
So there's a lot of chase, a lot of thrills, and I would definitely recommend seeing it. That first, I believe the premiere is the Friday after finals. Come see it. We're doing 2 showings, just $1 for students, $2 for non-students. Come enjoy it. Come support your communication department. It's going to be a lot of fun.
That's very intriguing. So I'll have to be there. Ladies and gentlemen, show up. If you're not there, then I hope you're watching Little Shop of Horrors or something. Something that I guess would be entertaining. I don't know. Boy. Anyway, thank you so much for listening. God bless you, and have a great day or night, or wherever you may be. Maybe you're in between. God bless you, and thanks for listening.